Happy Rusev Day, Aaron.
Oh, happy Rusev Day. What a glorious Rusev Day.
Glorious Rusev Day. And coincidentally, it's the same day that we're recording our show. So, it's fortuitous that you were on our show today. Of all days. Of all days it could have been, Rusev Day is the day you come on the show.
It's on Rusev Day, that's right.
So how's things going, man?
Good. We recorded our new episode earlier
today?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, busy day.
Like 6. Yeah, it was. But it's all right. I don't mind so much. I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. The life of a part-time podcaster, huh?
I know. The lucrative life of the part-time podcaster.
It's stressful. It's people don't understand the things that we go through. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
Trying to think of topics the day before because you forgot to come up with them the week before.
Getting stoned before you start recording. Drinking.
Yep.
It's fucking rough, you guys. You have no idea the things
That's why I got all this gray hair.
Yeah.
Didn't we only do one St. Patrick's Day episode drunk, Mike? Because it was a fucking disaster.
We did the one. We did the first one. And nobody believed that we were drunk, so we really got drunk. And I remember that I finally kicked everybody out of my house at midnight. I sit down, I'm pissed drunk, ready to go. And Mateo, I don't remember. Mateo had some delay on his end. There was something going on. So finally we were able to match up a time. It was like midnight 30 at that point. And I think that we called and then there was something wrong. We couldn't hear each other or something. And then when I was waiting for it to call back, I ended up passing out face down on my computer. And I woke up with Skype still open.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, I really enjoy beer. But I never get drunk. I don't ever drink to get drunk. And I was drinking with the purpose, the sole purpose to get drunk. It wasn't because so I was really, I'm like, they didn't believe that we were drunk last year. I'm going to show those, I was planning on slurring my speech and acting like an idiot. Instead, I passed out on my fucking keyboard.
So technically you showed them, they just couldn't see it.
Yeah, they just never saw it. Mateo should have just let the recording go and see if he could pick up on me snoring or something.
Oh, I wish you would have answered.
Oh, I didn't even answer.
No. Well, you did. Yeah, and then I had to call you back, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Like 6 hours of drunk snoring. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'd be like, see, we tried.
Dude, I just would have done the show.
With you snoring, just continue.
Yes, sir.
So what do you think of that, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh man, who knows? Maybe the crickets would have been chirping in the background. Who's to say?
In the first one, we were hammered too. I think.
Yeah, but I think we kept our shit together.
Yeah, a little bit too much, maybe. I mean, you text me like at 2, and you're like, "You're starting," and I was like, "Okay, let's do it." And we record at 8, so we were hammered.
Yeah, we got good at. We should do another one of those.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, we should. We should get a guest on to do it and get drunk with us. It'll hold us accountable.
There you go. Like the conscience of the group.
Yeah. So anyway, enough digression. Let's get into this. Tell us about your show. You just started a podcast.
Yeah.
Brand new, little virgin baby still. It's still has a soft skull.
Definitely still an infant. Yeah, exactly. It's still got the soft spot. It's called How We Saw It, and it's basically just me and my best friend, who's also named Mike. We've been friends I was trying to think about it before we started talking. It's getting close to like 30 years almost, I think, that he and I have been friends. and we were both brought up in a religious background. His dad was the preacher at the church that my parents went to, and so that's how we met. And as we got older, we kind of got away from the whole church thing. And Mike is an atheist now, and I consider myself an agnostic. And we kind of take a different topic every week, and we talk about how our upbringing has factored into how we see certain things. We do serious topics. Like the first episode was religion. Obviously, that seemed like the easiest one to go with.
I really enjoyed that episode too, man, because I'm
it was
super interested in religion. Yeah, it was.
And the funny thing about that one is we actually, I think we re-recorded it like 3 times. So the one that you heard is like the third take.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, I know. It was hard to do because we said there were so many cool things that we said in the first one that you try to remember and put in the second one. And then when he was like, well, I kind of want to change the format a little bit, and we did it again. And it loses a little bit. Sometimes you forget what you're going to say.
Oh yeah, we've been there. We've been there a number of times, and it is annoying, but sometimes you're able to get gold from it.
Yeah, you do it anyway because we wanted it to sound professional. And our original idea, we had banked like 5 episodes, so we were recording them and not releasing them. And then we realized that it was good, but then we realized that a lot of our stuff that we talk about has some like current event stuff thrown into it.
Yeah.
And it felt weird to put out an episode where I was talking about something current, as something current, but it was something that happened like 6 weeks ago or something. Yeah. So we do serious topics like religion, and we did our as we called it, our Halloween spooktacular. We did an episode on death, but we do fun stuff like we did. We've done horror movies and action movies, and we did a top 10 worst horror or a top worst horror movie episode, which was a lot of fun. So we try and mix it up. We don't want everybody to tune in and just get dragged down into depression because our topics are so heavy. So we try and mix it up a little bit here and there.
Not here, Aaron. Here it's 100% serious all the time. We stop laughing. This is a serious show. You're ruining the tone of the show. You sons of bitches. You bearded bastards. Both of you. You sons of bitches. I'm trying to really get out there how serious our show is, and you're undermining me with your laughter.
You're trying to make art, and I'm just pissing all over.
It is. You are. You know what? I give up. I'm done. I'm done. This is the last episode of the Whatcast. Thank you for listening.
Wow. And I got to be here. Jeez.
You did. And if you're angry, just fucking blame Aldo Poe, because it's his fucking fault.
Aldo, phone home.
Yeah, tell us about all this hate mail you're getting. I want to know. Your negligence is astounding, Aldo.
So how do you like being a podcaster, Aaron?
Well, it was weird at first. I wasn't sure how comfortable I'd be, especially on some of like the heavier topics, because we get into some personal shit. I wasn't so sure how I would do talking about stuff like that. And I gotta say, man, after like the first or second episode, once I shook the nerves off, like I'm definitely hooked on it now. Like I look forward to recording every week. So I'm gonna stick with it as long as people still listen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see points where we'd stop doing the show.
Right.
I just said we're done. This is the last episode. I mean, come on, man.
Again, answered with a laugh.
Yeah, you've got the attention span of a goddamn goldfish. This is ridiculous. This is the last episode. No more after this one.
So you couldn't
and release this one before you release. Yeah, no, this is bullshit. And I want you to release this episode before you release any of our other banked episodes, and then I want you to just delete the other episodes like they never existed.
You've redacted the episodes now.
I am. You can put them out, but it has to be the redacted sound that people complain
No.
about on our SCP episodes for an hour.
I'd still tune in.
Well, you're one of the good ones.
I try.
So when are you gonna tackle some paranormal stuff?
Well, I don't know. We've talked about it, and I think Mike just isn't sure how to, because he usually does the show writing. I think he's not really sure how to tackle the topics, so I think he's going to pass that one off to me. So
Nice.
I guess it'll just be whenever I get around to doing it. Like he
Yeah.
wants to do a wrestling episode because he and I are both big wrestling fans, and but he wants me to write it. So I sneakily procrastinated it off until like WrestleMania weekend. I was like, we should wait and do that in WrestleMania, and he was like, oh, it's a great idea. So
That
I
is.
saved myself the hassle of having to write an episode yet.
But that's the perfect time to do it, though, is WrestleMania weekend.
Oh yeah. And if we get lucky, it'll fall on Rusev Day. So
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, but I think if you time it right, you'll be good.
it'll come up all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are planning to get into it though. We are going to talk on some supernatural stuff.
Are you gonna well, I mean, I guess you don't have to spoil us, but are you gonna do like a broad spectrum paranormal thing, or are you planning on doing like different topics like ghosts and UFOs and things like that?
I think maybe considering our like the religious background that we've got, it honestly might be easier to kind of tackle them individually, like do an episode that's just about ghosts, because we can never tell what we're going to end up going off on tangents about. Like we have like bullet point ideas so that we know where to hit, and 9 times out of 10 we just kind of go off on tangents and we'll talk longer on a subject than we think we're gonna. So I think we'll probably split it up into individual episodes.
Nice. So that'll be pretty cool, and especially with the religious aspect, like behind ghosts and the idea of aliens.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like thinking of because I've also grown up, or I grew up in a Catholic household, and I was raised Catholic, and even to this day at I'm 37 years old, and I still get the religion stuff being pushed down my throat.
Oh yeah, you can't get away from it.
No, you can't, especially when like almost your entire family is religious. Like
yeah,
I have 4 other brothers, so there were 5 of us all together, and my parents. And out of all of us, me and one of my other brothers are the only ones that don't go to church anymore, and we don't buy into the whole Christian thing. And
right,
we've got our own ideas about what's going on, and it still gets pushed on us all the fucking time, man. It gets
like. Do you get the well, are you going to go to church? Like, do you get that kind of like sly guilt?
And my mom will be like, take your babies to church, and I'm like, Mom,
why?
I'm not raising, like, my oldest. Well, they both actually went there. They both have gone through a Catholic private school, so they're learning religion there, and I'm okay with them learning, getting like a religious foundation or whatever.
Yeah.
So that you have an idea of what's out there, and I talk to them about my own beliefs, and they're aware of what I believe in, and it just gives them some sort of base to go off of, so they know that there's this idea out there. But I'm not taking them to church. I'm not getting them, I'm not putting them through the system, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it still gets shoved down my throat, but they, being raised in that sort of thing, you kind of get a different idea about the paranormal, and it's kind of weird because like a lot of the religious belief systems are based on belief in the supernatural and the paranormal,
right?
But when you talk about any sort of paranormal outside of God and angels and the devil and his demons, it's like too far out there to even comprehend. It's like, whoa, no.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no such
they don't
thing
want
as
anything to do
ghosts.
with that. Yeah.
No such thing as ghosts. No such thing as aliens. Now, if you told me demons, sure, or angels,
Right.
yeah, sure. But when you get to aliens and ghosts, no.
Yeah.
Come on. There's no such
Those
thing as
preposterous
monsters.
things are too preposterous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird like how you can accept and even like thinking of magic, you
Mhm.
know, and not I'm not talking like shooting fireballs, but like
Right.
like ritual magic, chaos magic, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And and that's like considered the work of the devil. But in a lot of cases, those type of beliefs don't even acknowledge that there is a devil.
Right.
It's their own thing. And you're saying that magic doesn't exist, but what would you consider what God has done?
Right.
It's not science.
No, absolutely
He
not. It's presented as like a magical sort
right.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was always very interested in like, as I got older, you meet people that, you go to school, you meet people that believe different things than you do. So a lot of that stuff became interesting to me. Not that I wanted to follow it or anything or practice it, but people, you meet people that, oh well, I'm pagan or Wiccan or whatever. So you learn a little bit about that from them, or you meet somebody that practices Islam and you learn a little something from them. Like I was never interested in practicing it myself, but it was religion is intriguing to me, and
yeah, as
I
well.
I found what pushed me away from going to church and shit like that the most was that I had questions about these other religions, and
Right.
that was like a no. Like you
Yeah.
brought up something else and they didn't even want to talk to you about it. So when I found out that I had questions that they weren't going to give me answers to, I started wondering about all the other things that I had questions and they weren't really giving me answers to.
But
Even stuff that I just been brought up with.
that whole thing is like that's like brainwashing 101.
Yeah.
Don't look into any outside sources. Only follow our dogmatic rules,
Right.
even if at times they contradict what is in our books. Like just keep following because we are the one that makes and it's really weird that a lot of these religions are so I don't even really know how to word it. It's like they don't want to say they're a cult,
Yeah.
but I mean, I guess by sheer amount of numbers, you can't call it a cult. It's more, because it's a movement at that
Right.
point. It's not just like a small collective of people, but the mentality and the way, like, I've never seen people get angrier than when you and not even in like a malicious way, but just in a way that contradicts their religious point of view. I've never seen people get more angry than when they feel that their point of view is being doubted.
Oh yeah, it's personal. Like
Yeah,
it's a very personal thing. Like I've
yeah,
always kind of said that like your major religions are the cults that stuck,
yeah,
because you got to figure like your Christianity started off with fucking 12 people. Like that's not a religion, that's a cult.
right.
Like
Yeah,
12 people's a cult.
but I mean, really, it wasn't even. There was a following, and it was kind of a movement at the time, and if you look at it, even if you were to say that the figure depicted as the Christ was historical, whether he was the Son of God is kind of irrelevant to the
Right.
to the story. It's he was a revolutionary of his time,
Yeah.
and he was educating the people about the corruption that existed within the dogmatic religion of the time, and he offered the people another way to God.
Yeah.
And his ideals, a lot of the things that he preached about flew directly in the face of the Jewish belief system.
Right.
And even though that's now been incorporated as part of his history, and if you look at him as being God himself, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he's contradicting himself. But if you look at it in the terms of a revolutionary that's trying to enlighten the people and get them to attain a higher level of being, a higher purpose in life, he he was making a lot of sense. You know,
Oh yeah.
like take out all the Christian dogma, take out all of that Jewish law, Old Testament stuff, and the story that Jesus was telling to the people was a story of he's telling them to rebel against the Jewish the Pharisees.
Right.
They're corrupt, threw the moneylenders out of the temple, but he preached a different way to God, and you don't need a church to be, you know, it, and that's even if maybe the concepts that he were preaching were they've just been kind of misinterpreted over time. Like if you look at early Christian beliefs and the Gnostics, they had a very different idea of what Jesus was trying to get out there than what the Catholics do now.
Right.
And a lot of books have been omitted. It's a whole thing, and
Yeah. It's political. Everything eventually gets political. But
and
like,
especially
like you said,
when you go to the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And the church was the force of the time. You know, you couldn't go against the church. They were
They were it.
I've always heard the well, I shouldn't say always, but I've heard the joke that the Roman Empire didn't die; it just became a religion.
Not all that inaccurate.
Yeah. When you look at because when they became the Holy Roman Empire, like it's no coincidence that the center of the Catholic Church is in Rome.
Yeah,
that's not by chance. That's it's a control system, and that's what it is.
And you know, like that's kind of, you know, Mike and I, that's what we've kind of come to agreement on about religion, is that it has some good points. Like, you know, it tells you to be good to people, and it tells you, you know, to, you know, treat everybody fairly. But honestly, like if you have to have a book or the threat of eternal burning to be nice to people and not steal and not murder, like, I don't know,
Makes it disingenuous with that.
You're kind of an asshole to start with. It's like you have to be told not to do it because, you know, you're going to go to hell otherwise, and you're still kind of a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So since you grew up in a religious household as well, what was the beliefs surrounding the paranormal that you grew up with?
I can honestly say that my parents didn't really bring it up all that often. My mom was always weird about like Halloween and shit like that. Like I think she made me a Halloween costume like one time, and then I was really never allowed to celebrate it again, particularly, like not seriously.
Shit.
Not like a, you know, you're gonna burn for it, but they just like, I want to say that what ended up happening was we got some kind of holy roller preacher in the church, like prior to Mike's dad coming in, that we had gotten some kind of crazy holy roller in there, and he had convinced everybody that
it was like a pagan holiday.
Yeah, it's evil. Because I distinctly remember going and listening to them rant and rave about like the Passion of the Passion of the Christ when that first came out. Or what was the one in the 80s with Willem Dafoe, The Last Temptation of Christ?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember them just barking about that for like a couple weeks about how it was going to be the downfall of society.
Well, didn't they make? I honestly have never seen that movie, but didn't they make him bang Mary Magdalene in that movie?
I believe so. Like I think I've only seen
like that's where that shit came from. I think.
Yikes.
Yeah. Like they kind of humanized him. Like they made him look like he had faults. So you know, it was probably more realistic than any other depiction.
Right.
I guess, but yeah, that was apparently a bad thing. And like music, like a lot of music was gonna send me to hell. Like if you listen to Prince, you're gonna die.
I can't even like tell you the amount of times I got that shit, man. Like, and all through my teenage years, and I mean even to now, I still love metal, but I was always into metal, and I remember getting the first 6 Feet Under album.
Haunted.
Yeah, dude. And the second track on that, where it starts with "I'll cut your throat wide open," but it's like all guttural. And I remember my parents heard us listening to it, like, "What the hell? Let me see that." And they read the lyrics to the song, and they're like, "Oh my god, what are you listening?" Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
get this, my dad wanted to listen to every album I purchased before he decided.
Like to check it out.
Yeah, exactly. To see if I got to keep it or not.
Damn.
Yeah, imagine what happened when they found out I was listening to White Zombie.
Oh man.
The first, well, I guess not the first, but the first like really big one, the La Sexorcisto Devil Music Volume 1. They're like, oh my god.
They were probably days away from staging an intervention.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't even know it, but I was so close to being exorcised.
Just teetering on the edge.
Yeah. Like we're gonna call in the exorcist tomorrow.
Like they never got into like the satanic panic thing. Like maybe if I had been a little older in the 80s, like if I had been, a few years older than I was, it might have been a little bit different. But like I remember them talking about like, Dungeons and Dragons and how that was gonna send you straight to hell.
My mom lost her shit when I started playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
She's like, oh my god, it's a devil's game.
Yeah, my parents were not overly cool with it either. And then I showed them pretty much what it was, and my mom was just kind of like, oh, you're just a nerd. Yeah, you're just a dork. So
that's how that happened for me too. My dad was like, do not play that shit ever, and I ended up playing it anyway. And when I did, I was like, what's the big fucking deal? And
right.
That was one of the main things that people were fearful of that I didn't understand was fucking Dungeons and Dragons. It's a fucking game. Like my dad even talked to me about not reading choose your own adventure books. I was like, what the what the fuck? Yeah, it was odd.
It's funny you mentioned that because I actually kind of remember that too. Like I remember that being lumped in with Dungeons and Dragons.
Right?
Like somehow choose your own adventure books were gonna be your downfall. Oh man, that's wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird for him to even be so cautious of music. I mean, my whole family's musicians on his side. So, I mean, it was like a big important thing to me. And I'm like, you're not going to let me listen to like anything I want to. But luckily that didn't last that long at all. Like it was like the first 2 or 3 albums. I was like, yeah, here's like Crash Chest Dummies. You listen to that one.
Right. I'm going to hide this one over here.
Yeah. Here's South of Heavens right over here. Don't look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I had a shirt from a fucking shirt I've never seen before or since, but it was an album cover of a band called Sausage. And I never really fucking let him see it. And when he saw it, he fucking made me throw it away.
Wow.
And I'd do anything for that fucking shirt now, but no way, dude. I'll never find that shirt again.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just a lot. I don't want to bash on religion too much. There's a lot of people who fucking.
Oh yeah.
It does great things for them, and I don't hate on anybody for loving the Lord, as my mom always says.
No, not at all.
For sure, but I mean, it's weird how you mentioned that. I mean, that's pretty much the story with everybody I know who was brought up with religion and who's not into it anymore. Is that it didn't answer the questions they were looking for. I don't know if you care to, but what type of questions weren't you getting the answers from religion?
I wanted to know, honestly, what happens when you die? You can tell me I go to heaven, but I don't have any real concept of that. Like, as a kid, I don't know what that really means. Like, I don't know what hell means. I have no concept of eternity. I had questions about, if God is all knowing and all powerful, why do horrible things happen in the world? Like why do people get sick? Why did my dog die? And like just inane shit like that. And the answer was always, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And that to me was just the most insulting answer. Like that's a non-answer.
Biggest cop out of all time.
I've always felt that it's like the go ask your father of religion questions. Like, you go to one person and you say like, well, why is such and such like this? And they say, well, go ask your father. Like, you're never going to get a real answer out of anybody for it because there's no fucking answer. They're just pushing you off.
Yeah. Then you go ask your father, have you talked to your mother yet?
Yeah, exactly. Well, go ask your mother. Oh, it's just.
But I just did.
Yeah.
Well, it's go ask her again. Yeah.
Now, you and Mike talk a lot about the hell stuff. I mean, Mike, Catholicism and Christianity, 2 different things. When did that start? When did you guys first? I don't know. I don't want to really say it because I don't want to sound like I'm bashing anything.
Okay.
When did the threat of hell come about for you guys?
Well, it's ingrained.
Yeah.
As a Christian, you get beat over the head with the threat of hell.
Like, I imagine it's probably a little different for you because you're Catholic. Like, there's a little bit, there's a little
Whoa,
bit
whoa!
more.
Don't lump me in with those guys. I I'm a recovering Catholic. All
Right.
right.
I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Recovering Catholic. You were a Catholic, but I imagine like the hell. Like, were you getting the hell thing like right away? Pretty much, like as soon as you
I
had a
mean,
concept of it.
I I don't really remember. Like, I can't remember a time not knowing about hell, but I don't remember where it was first introduced as a concept. I would imagine probably it was in kindergarten because I actually started out going to a Catholic school as well,
Okay.
and I think in kindergarten probably when we learned about the story of the Garden of Eden, and they talked about the serpent, and then they equated that with the devil, and then
Yep.
of course the question, what's the devil, and then from there.
It just goes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I one of my first the first dream that I ever remember was it's the silliest dream, but I can still remember it. It was the Smurf village, but it was in the clouds.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, the devil floated up on a cloud and started grabbing Smurfs and just throwing them from the clouds to the ground.
Wow.
And that was one of the first nightmares that I had that I can remember.
That's pretty gruesome, honestly. Like you think Smurfs and you're like, oh, this will be cute, and then no, you took a hard turn on that.
Not to mention, it's a Smurf village in the clouds.
Right? Yeah.
It's even better than the regular one. It's in the clouds, but the devil, and it was the classic devil, like all red with the goat legs and the
Yeah.
horns and he's like grabbing the fucking Smurfs and just tossing them to their death. Those
I
poor
think I think for me, I was probably around the same age as you, I guess then. Like I remember going to like Sunday school. Like we went to church every Sunday, and then like we would go on Wednesdays too. I don't even remember why. So it was like Sunday morning, and I would go to Sunday school, and that's where I first like I remember seeing like paintings of the devil, like you said, that kind of classic devil with the horns and the the kind of the beard, like definitely kind of painted nefariously. uh that was kind of the first introduction I had to it. I think was the pictures of like the devil, and he's in the lake of fire, and there's people kind of like old Renaissance type paintings, which are usually pretty.
Some of those paintings are
Yeah.
so gnarly, man. They're
Yeah.
really fucking cool though. Like you look at some of those, and they're the amount of like detail and just little things like amongst the masses of tortured souls, you'll see like this crazy shit going on. It's some of that shit is really amazing, and especially like when you see the artwork that went with Dante's Inferno, and then the stuff that Dante's Inferno inspired in the Renaissance. Like that shit was so cool.
And as a kid, it's scary as hell, because it's really
Yeah.
realistic looking.
Right.
So I think that was probably my first introduction, like looking at that stuff and then saying like, man, I hope I don't do anything bad and go there, and then I spent the next like 15 years laying in bed at night going, if I die, am I going to fucking burn? Like,
Right. Right. Yeah. Isn't it weird that like guilt is so associated with, or well, I shouldn't say
religion,
associated, but it's like you don't have a choice but to feel guilty about just being human.
They do obedience through fear is what it is. Like,
just like Fox News.
I know.
Is Fox News a religion
figure,
too?
Right? I think it is.
Now, you said your family only mentioned the paranormal a few times. I mean, does your family have like the classic story of somebody in your family experiencing something? Is there any type of experience that they went through?
Not that anyone told, like the only one that I know of in the family that's had anything, and I never shared it with my parents because I don't know, it just felt like the kind of thing that they would throw religion into. And you can't really have a conversation once somebody throws religion into something. But it's one of my first memories, and I will say that I was probably, I don't know, I was old enough to know I wasn't a baby, but I was still in a crib, like a daybed type setup. So I'll say I was probably like between 3 and 4, let's say. And the house that we lived in, my grandfather had bought this giant bit of land, and on it at the bottom was this like old hotel from the 1920s that like gangsters used to come up to and hang out and shit. So it was this huge, crazy hotel. And then a little bit up the property was where they had more hotel rooms. And my grandfather had converted it into a house. So we lived there. And you would go up the stairs to the second floor, and my room was the first one on the left. So I remember standing in my crib, leaning against like the grate or whatever to keep you from falling out, because I heard someone coming up the stairs, and I assumed that it was my mother. And I saw hands come around the corner of the door frame, and then a head popped through and said "boo," and it wasn't my mom. It wasn't my dad. It wasn't anybody I knew. And I screamed. I was like, and I turned away really quickly because I was scared. And when I turned back around, my mom was doing the exact same thing. Like she was putting her hands on the door frame and poking her head around. And she didn't say boo because she saw how scared I looked, when she saw me, and she came in and asked what was wrong. But that was like my first real paranormal experience that I can recall.
Well, one, the property sounds fucking awesome.
Oh, dude, it was so cool.
That
I
had
only
to.
lived I only lived there through the first grade. The New York State took it by eminent domain. They wanted
Oh,
it for they wanted it for it had a big lake on it, and they wanted it for the ski center to use for like making snow with the water. So they just came in and took it basically. And then I would say like 6 months after we moved out, they knocked the house down completely, and now it's like a day use area. My parents still live across the street, actually.
God damn
Um,
it.
yeah. The amount of like cool stuff that probably went on in that area, like especially with the hotel and everything, I can't even imagine. And when my grandfather died, I was really too young to have thought to ask him about the history of the place. Like I've always thought about looking into it and just kind of, never gotten around to it.
And two, that story is absolutely fucking horrifying. Can you describe what type of face was there at first?
Uh, like it's a while ago, so I don't know whether I'm picturing it the way I want to picture it or if I'm picturing it the way it actually was. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it was like an older woman. Like I remember like an older looking face, that kind like like when you get that like that softer looking face, like your skin hangs a little softer. Um, I remember that, and I remember kind of like old looking white hands, but it definitely wasn't any face that I had ever seen before.
Is that what scared you, or was she hideous or something like that?
No,
Or
there was no hideousness to it. It was just this. I was expecting my mom to come around the corner, and when she didn't, and it was a face of an old person that I didn't recognize, I panicked.
wow, that's fucking scary.
Yeah,
Now, you were pretty young when that happened,
yeah.
and we most of us experienced something like that by our teen years. Do you have any other experiences after that?
I have one, and it spans across like a few years, so I'll try and cliff notes it so it's not boring as shit. Um,
If you recall back when we started the episode, I said this is a very serious,
that's a very
straightforward
serious. That's
episode.
right. That's right.
So the more boring
The
and
better.
dry you could be,
Right.
and if you could use a monotone voice, I would really appreciate it.
So
Thank
should I
you.
do like the NPR, like all things considered?
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank
um,
you.
yeah,
Let's bring some legitimacy back
class.
to paranormal podcasting. God damn it.
All right. So when I was 16, I had a job at. I'm not going to say what the place is because they get enough of their own publicity as it is. It's a roadside attraction in uh, the Hudson Valley, like the Catskills. So I'm 16. My dad works there, and I knew the guy that owned the place, and they wanted me to, come in for like my first job or whatever. And the job that they gave me was overnight security because the place was closed. Like they just needed somebody to basically sit in a building from the time the sun went down to the time the sun came up and make sure nobody like broke into the buildings because they didn't have doors on them at the time or whatever. So every say hour or so I would go out and I would like patrol the grounds or whatever and just walk around. So on the property was an old house that they had picked up and moved like like they picked up the entire house and had moved it to the center of this property. They didn't move it far, but they moved it. Like big creepy old fucking building. So I'm walking past the building, and I'll say it's like, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And like like you walk past something and you feel like somebody's looking at you. So I look behind me and there's nothing there. And I glance up into the third floor window of this house that they had moved, and there was a girl standing in the window looking down at me. And she just, she kind of looked for a second and then she was gone. And it freaked me out. I told my dad about it the next day, and he was like, "Well, I don't, there was obviously nobody here, so I don't know what to tell you." He didn't disbelieve me, but he just didn't really know what to say. Uh, so, you flash forward 3 or 4 more years, and now I'm working in the retail stores of the same place. The building is still there. They use it for like offices and storage and stuff like that. And it had kind of become like a running gag that you shouldn't make Aaron go to the third floor of it was the Longyear building. Don't make Aaron go to the third floor of the Longyear building because that's where the ghost is. So and they would all laugh like ha ha at it. So one day they decided they were going to send me up there to do like some inventory to count shit out of boxes and stuff. So you would go, you would open the door to the third floor, and it was one of those really steep and shallow stepped staircases. Like, so it felt like climbing a ladder sometimes a little bit. But you would go to the top of the stairs, and then you had a room to your right, and there was a room to your left. But if you went to the top of the stairs and turned completely around, there was also a little hallway that went to the very front of the building by a big bay window. So I'm up there, I'm counting things, and I'm going back and forth between the two rooms, and I'm thinking to myself, ha ha, I never saw anything. Like I'll have to tell them that I never saw anything and everything was fine. And as I'm going across, just before I was ready to leave, I go across from one room to the other, and out of the corner of my eye, down the little hallway by the big window, I see something move. And I stop. Like it's just that moment where you just freeze dead. Like I stopped, and I froze, and I slowly moved my head to look down by the window, and there was the same girl standing there, just looking at me. And she took a few steps forward towards me and then just disappeared. And I promptly went and closed everything up and got the hell out of there. And after that, there were people that had offices in that building that would say that they would hear things up on the third floor, like walking back and forth. So it kind of became like the company ghost story. Like people got interested in it after that. And we decided, haha, one night a bunch of us were going to get together and have a few drinks, and we were going to bust out like the Ouija board, right? Like you do when you're young. So we bust out the Ouija board, and everybody's, taking a turn on it and asking questions. And I get on it towards the end and said, is there anybody here that wants to talk to Aaron? And it goes right to yes. Okay, who are you? And it spelled out third floor. And everybody kind of just froze like, oh shit, like what is this? And we said, well, what do you want to say? And it just said hello friend, or like hi friend, or something like that. And we laughed it off. I was a little weirded out by it. And then you got to like I said, it covers a long period of time. You flash forward like another 10 or 12 years, and Jen and I are married at this point. And my dad says, why don't you come up and spend the weekend at the hotel? We got a free room for you or whatever. And unbeknownst to me, they had incorporated the Longyear building into the new hotel. So they'd actually built the building like into the Longyear building.
Whoa.
So now So now the Longyear building has hotel rooms in it. Like, like some hotel rooms that they've kind of carved out of what was already there. So they give me the room, and it's like one of the two better rooms because my dad had set it up for me and he had worked there for a really long time. And we go in, and it's got like automatic blinds, like these huge windows and automatic blinds. So we were going for dinner, and I knew that the sun would be down after we got back. So I put the blinds down. I come back in, an hour or so later after we eat, and the blinds are up, like all the way up. So I call the front desk, did you guys go in my room, to do anything? No one's been in your room. No one did anything. I didn't think anything of it. It was just kind of weird. And then a day or so later, I talked to my dad, And I mentioned it to him, and he was like, well, uh, I don't want to weird you out, but the room that you stayed in was that part of the Longyear building. So my impression of that was that that was the girl from the third floor opening the blinds to let me know that she was still there.
Now, Mike, I think you'd agree that this is a pretty heavy experience. I mean, to see the same
Yeah,
entity twice.
especially, yeah, exactly. Usually if something like that follows you, there's a reason
Right.
why they want to make the contact with you.
Yeah. Now I asked people, while things were going on when I was younger about history of the building. And you know how local history goes. Like you can't always believe it. Like, it's a lot of hearsay sometimes. But what I was told was that the family that owned the house, uh, back in say the late 1800s, the early 1900s, they had a daughter that was handicapped. And back then that was kind of viewed as a slight on your family, like it was the kind of thing that you would hide. And they kept her on the third floor. Like that's where they kept her. She wasn't allowed down with the rest of the family. She was kept on the third floor, and that's where she died, up there. Around the age, they said, of like 15 or 16, which would have been about the same age I was when she first showed herself to me.
Wow. See, so there you
Yeah.
go. Story confirmed.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Maybe she just wanted you to take her out on a nice date.
Right? Like she wanted to go out for a nice steak dinner or something.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe she just wanted to eat your heart.
Yeah, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah.
So did that make you a believer in the spirit world, as they say after that?
I would call myself a skeptical believer. Like I find ghost stories interesting, but I don't buy into them immediately. Like I need to be shown a little bit something special. Like you're not going to get me with like orbs and EVP stuff. And
It's interesting that, I mean, like when your first sighting of this girl ghost, her looking out the window, that sounds like it fits with the story that you found about this girl being left on the third floor.
Yeah.
But in the second encounter, her actually not facing the window, but looking towards you. And then,
yeah, it was like an acknowledgement almost.
yeah. And then the Ouija board later saying, hi,
Yep.
friend. That's wow.
Like I had honestly thought about taking my digital camera like later in the evening at some point and going up there and setting it up to like time lapse type photos and stuff like that. And I honestly I didn't want the answer. Like I was too weirded out. Like I think because she had kind of fixated on me, it felt I don't know, it felt odd, a little more odd than like your average like, oh, I think this house is haunted. Do you want to go check it out? Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking to like have her follow me back to my apartment or anything like that.
Wow. Yeah, that can get scary quick. Nothing after that. That was.
uh no, honestly that was it. And I haven't been back since the time we stayed at the hotel with the blinds. I haven't been back since then. So I don't know. Maybe she's still there.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to research to see if there's like any, small local town ghost websites that mentions a girl on the third floor of this building.
You know what? I think I should check that out. That's a really good idea. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, there might be a lot of other people who've seen her.
That's true. Especially with it being a hotel and there's more traffic to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can be like, shit, that's my old homie.
Now, across the street from that place, there was another hotel that they had owned, and that place was like huge and old. And I remember before they opened, my dad taking me in there. I was probably 17, 18 or whatever. We walked in, and like the room where they would have had like the TV room still had the tiny TV because it was an old, like nobody had been there in so long. It still had the tiny TV, and all the fucking chairs were still lined up. And like we went upstairs to some of the old rooms, and there were still suitcases and clothes. Like people had just not come back for them. Like just laying there. Like you walked into a room and there was a suitcase and like a pair of shoes. Like this shit was just shit laying there.
Yikes.
Like yeah. So my friend Mike, actually the co-host of the show, he worked in that hotel as a night auditor, and he had a woman come down one night. Just he said she looked like white as a sheet, and he was like, ma'am, are you okay? And she said that she had been laying in bed, and her husband was laying next to her, and she heard somebody like say something. She couldn't make out what it was. And she asked her husband, what did you say? Or, repeat yourself. And he kind of did that like sleepy snore, roll over. And then she heard it again. And she said, she told Mike that she rolled over to her other side and there was a man by the side of the bed that was staring at her and said, like, "You're in my bed."
Ooh.
And then she got the hell up and like came downstairs because she was so freaked out.
That's insanely scary.
Yeah. Like I never had
thank
anything
you.
like that there, but like, ooh,
Yikes. I wouldn't want any part of anything like that.
no, not at all.
That's one of the weirder aspects of when you go through an experience like that, is when what you're hearing and seeing is so vivid that you don't question it. You kind of just react to, like, respond to whatever's happening, and then you slowly realize it's kind of not really there.
Yeah.
Such a unique and odd feeling. I had this experience once where I worked at this it's not a warehouse like place, but it was pretty big, and it was kind of like I may have mentioned it before on the show, so sorry guys if I'm repeating myself, which I'm sure you guys are just sick of already.
Yeah.
But it was like a small Costco, and we were already closed, and I was going through each aisle and making sure there wasn't shit on the floor, making sure things looked nice, and I heard somebody walking and going through shit on the shelves on the other side of the aisle that I was on, and I walked around to the other side saying, like, "Excuse me, sir, we're closed." And when I got there, nobody was there.
Ugh.
And I thought it didn't make me nervous or scared me. I didn't think ghost or spirit or anything like that at all. I was like, huh, because as I was walking towards him, it sounded like he was walking the other way.
Right.
So when I got to my side where he was supposed to be, I just said, okay, we're chasing each other now. So I went around the other side where I could still hear him walking and moving shit, and nobody was there. And then I knew, boom.
That's wild.
Yeah, something's not right. And I went right up to the front. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm done for today. Yeah. I was cool with the dude who was working, so I was like, I'm gonna go now. But it's that you're just, when you're so sure. I mean, it's just broad as daylight. These sounds are happening, and it's everything about it's natural. There's no questioning what's going on, and then you just realize it's not really there. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, you have that expectation that when you round that corner, somebody is going to be standing there, and you're going to have to tell them that you're closed. And when they're not there, your brain is like, "Whoa, what?" Like,
yeah. You ever have that feeling with any of your experiences, Mike, or where you're just like, "What the fuck?" the whole time?
Well, the only so there was let me think. Mostly it's what the fuck. But I had the experience that made me run out of my house where I saw the movement thing that really freaked me out. But for the most part, it's just like I'm more intrigued. But I haven't really had many ghost encounters, just the couple that I've mentioned on the show a few times. But nothing, definitely nothing recent, even remotely. And with the exception of that one experience, it's more just kind of been interesting more than anything.
You know what's even more weird than getting that feeling is seeing somebody go through that. Have you guys ever experienced that, watching somebody?
No.
Oh, man.
No, I haven't.
No.
That's weird stuff, too. I remember I worked with this lady who, she was into that stuff pretty heavily. She was like she was an older lady. She was a subscriber to like Sylvia Browne newsletter and shit like that.
Oh, okay.
Which is like $175 a month, by the way, just for the newsletter.
Yeah.
It was back then anyway. But she was a cool lady. But I remember the time I got there a little bit early, and I was walking towards the place, and I saw her just run out of there. I mean, just run, and I had to yell like, "Hey," whatever her name was, I don't fucking remember. And I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "There's a fucking ghost in there." It was weird just to see her like white as a sheet, authentically terrified. And I'm just like, "There's nobody in there. There's nothing in there."
But did you have that moment of like, "But I'm not gonna go look either"?
Oh,
like...
No, I went and looked. I told her, "I'll go look right now." I marched right in there. I don't even think I stopped walking.
Wow.
And I went right in there because I didn't want anybody to be in there moving around when she was in there by herself,
That's true. Yeah.
But that was weird to how often would you get to go through that, just watching somebody reacting from something like that?
Yeah, it's got to be like a 1 in a billion kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the having an experience on your own is happens as frequently as you can imagine, but seeing somebody else doing it's got to be even more implausible.
Now, how did seeing this ghost girl affect you, going through, I guess, what I'll call the motions of religion? I mean, did that confirm your religion more? Did you think that was an evil spirit or something bad happened? Or
No, I think I was old enough at that point that I had kind of like dipped away. I had started already dipping away from religion. Like once I started working a 40-hour a week job, like I didn't have time to go to church anymore. So that was just my excuse to not go. Um, I don't know. It didn't really, I don't think I found it evil or anything like that. It was more of a, like, I can't believe necessarily what I'm seeing. Um, yeah, it wasn't like a come to Jesus thing for me though. Like I definitely didn't make me go home and pray or anything like that. It was just more
Mhm.
of a like, holy shit, I can't believe what I just saw. Like I believe that when you die, something happens. I don't know what, and religions are made up by people, so I can't put too much stock in that. But I believe something happens. Like I'd like to think that what makes you kind of sticks around in some way. So I mean, I guess I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I had seen her when I was 16 looking out of a window, and then now there it is again right in front of me. Um, yeah, I think I was more like I won't lie, I was scared shitless a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh but no, it didn't give me any kind of like religious feelings or anything like that. If anything, it made me realize that there was just another question that they didn't answer, because I was always told that when you die you go to heaven. So if that's the case, why is she still there?
Mm-hmm. How about you, Mike? How did a paranormal experience like that, like seeing something that wasn't supposed to be there, did your religious background have like any effect on how you felt about it?
No,
Like in my
no.
in my religious upbringing, it was always bad if you experienced something like that. So anytime I saw something like that, I was like, "Fuck, no, shit."
I see. I was always told that ghosts weren't real, and I was up until like probably once we started doing the show or around that time. I was a believer in ghosts, as the disembodied spirits of the deceased.
Mm,
Now I've got different ideas. Like I think the phenomenon is real. I think
yeah,
that is, but I think that our interpretation of what's going on is what's that's the part that we need to work on. And I know in a lot of cases people think because they had a recently deceased person or a recent tragedy or whatever that they're experiencing these things, or if they move into a haunted house where there was some sort of tragedy, it makes them believe more that there was, when weird shit starts happening.
right.
And but I, even as a kid, it was always something that I believed in, and I couldn't even tell you where the belief came from, because my parents always were non-believers in ghosts and things of that nature. So anytime I would bring it up, they'd always tell me ghosts don't exist. It's not a thing that's real. And then they would, because they're really religious, they would always say, when you die, you either go to heaven or you go to hell. And it's not, you don't stick around. And they're like, there's always the idea that you stick around because you have unfinished business. But most people, when they die, have things that they haven't done and have unfinished business. And that point always made sense to me. So I never really had an explanation as to why there would be ghosts. And it wasn't until I kind of cross-referenced my various paranormal researches that I started to come to a different conclusion about what hauntings really were. And I kind of classify them into two separate things. And I've talked about it a million times on the show about my ideas of hauntings. But I think really my religious background, the only thing that it really kind of made me question was what the ghosts were and why they were around. If you're supposed to go to heaven or hell, why are they still here?
Right.
See, that's kind of
And
why how I was brought up, why they were always bad is that, if they're not supposed to be here, they can't be from God.
Right.
So it was always a bad omen or a bad sign or just something. It was never good. There was no just like just a presence that's kicking it. There's something working against you.
It's more of that obedience through fear. Like I saw something strange. Well, you better pray on it because none of that is good.
Yeah, definitely. So what are the types of things are you guys going to try to cover in the future?
Uh, you know, Mike makes the majority of he picks the majority of the topics. Because he writes them, so I kind of leave it to him to do that. But uh, honestly, we kind of do that on like a week by week basis. Like after we record, or even sometimes like while we're recording the episode, like I won't know what we're doing next until he says, and next week topic is whatever, and then he'll tell me like a day later that he changed his mind, so he just edited that part out. Um, so I like I said, I know we're gonna do a wrestling episode coming up, and we're gonna talk about like we'll do some paranormal stuff at some point. I kind of want to do a second part on the religion episode because I feel like we didn't get everything that we wanted to do. I'm sure we will do an episode that leans heavy on politics coming up. It's usually just kind of a whatever we're feeling like talking. Like we like to say that the show just sounds like you're hanging out with two people that are friends and listening to them have a conversation. So we
Nice.
kind of try and keep it as like as even keeled and loose as we can. We have like a couple segments, for lack of a better term, that we do. Like we do like he gives me a hot take where he'll hit me with something political sometimes and let me rant and rave about it for 10 or 15 minutes. And we like to talk a lot about like mental health, and we try to stay like on a positive mental health kick with the show. So I would be willing to bet that at some point he will want to do a mental health episode, which I'm totally on board with. Yeah, it's kind of just as we go. Like it's whatever suits our fancy in the moment. That's what we talk about. It's the nice thing about like doing a show with somebody that you've been friends with for that long. Like we can kind of converse on just about everything at this point.
Well, I for one was glad to hear that you started a podcast. I mean, even just from reading your blog, The Voice in Between, I always thought you needed to start a podcast, and then we had your wife on, and then just from talking to you on there, I was like,
Right.
I told Mike, we got to figure out a way to get Aaron on. And I'm glad you started your podcast. It's great. I've listened to almost all of them. I mean,
Thank you.
every chance I get to listen to a podcast, I'm sure to throw yours on. And before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast? And
Yeah. Again, it's called How We Saw It, and you can find us on SoundCloud and Stitcher and iTunes. We record on Fridays. We release every Tuesday, or at least we try to. We've been pretty good about it so far. We have a Facebook page. I think it's How We Saw It Podcast. We don't have any official Twitter for it yet. We're working on that. And like you said, like if people want to read me ranting and raving about politics, I have my blog, The Voice in Between.
excellent. And we'll add all that stuff to the Links and Homies page of our website.
Cool.
If you happen to be on our website, and again, like the outro says, if you want to know anything about any of our guests, just go there and it'll just take you right to their stuff. So we'll add you there so people can easily find it.
Thank you. And I want to say again, since we're still recording, I want to thank you guys again for having me on. Like you guys were my first podcast that I ever listened to.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Jen was like, "You got to check this podcast out," and I was like, "What the fuck is a podcast?" So she got me to listen to it, and I was pretty hooked right from the get go. Like I love the format, like it's just two people talking, and you guys were a big influence when we started How We Saw It. You guys were a big influence on how I wanted things to sound and how I wanted the kind of the format to go. So, considering I was always like, man, I hope someday I can either do a podcast or do something to get on the Whatcast. This is like a full circle moment for me, really. like,
And how
come on
fitting.
with you guys.
How fitting that we were your first podcast and you're here to record the last one.
Last
with us.
show, I know.
It's almost like it was written that way.
No.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on and spending this time with us. It was great to get to hang out with you.
You too. It's been great, guys.
We'll look forward to having you back on.
And happy Rusev Day.
Rusev Day.
All right, take care, brother.
Later, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.